Java 16 was released recently, and we have with us once again Chad Arimura, VP of Java Developer Relations at Oracle, to deep dive into this release. Chad, it's strange to see you behind a screen. We are so used to seeing each other in person, sitting next to each other. How does it feel doing everything virtually?
Well, how does that beard feel on you? Because that's new too.
Yeah, it's not just the Java which has new features. I'm also adding new features.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to getting together back in person again, but we're making do with what we have.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Java is it's a beast, and 16 is here. So let's start with. I would like to just go back in history because I'm talking to you. Is how have you seen the evolution of Java over the years? Because when Java was created, most of this, all the cloud native, edge, 5G, none of that existed back then. But now it's, as we had a discussion last time, if you're looking at cloud native, Java is the technology language you should be looking at. So let's talk about the evolution quickly.
One of the exciting things about Java is we're just coming out of this campaign that we've called Moved by Java, which really signifies how much the world has really literally been moved by Java, literally, figuratively, emotionally. In every definition of the word moved, the world has truly moved forward with Java for the past quarter century. And a quarter century fresh language or platform needs to continue to evolve and continue to modernize itself in order to almost be reborn every few years. And Java is truly used by so much software, by so many companies around the world, that we're always thinking about how do we kind of balance between this idea of innovation, which is move faster, fix mistakes of the past, and then being conservative as well. Don't alienate your users. Don't move too quickly. Don't break applications. Ensure that they remain compatible. Applications that were built around Java 1.0 continue to work on the JVM today. So that's really been an exciting balance for the team to think about. And this JDK 16 release, or Java 16, represents the 7th release as part of the new 6-month release cadence, which is probably one of the most exciting things to have happened in Java in some time.
Right. Last year, Java turned 25, and this year we are talking 16. Of course, there are releases every 6 months. But what is significant about 16? Any major highlights? Some key features you want to talk about?
I think that predictability has been a big aspect of what 16 is all about. So as I mentioned, it's the 7th release as part of this 6-month release cadence. So every 6 months, like clockwork, a new version of Java is released. And so we've really set on this kind of predictable release cadence, whereas before it was sort of based around a feature. And when that feature was ready, we would ship a new version. But that could sometimes be 2 years. It could sometimes be 4 years. And so now the ecosystem has gotten into a rhythm of getting new features, new functionality into Java, into their hands every 6 months, and to understand when that's going to come. And one of the really notable things about 16 is how much of the ecosystem we're starting to see adopts the version in, like, for example, popular frameworks and libraries before 16 is even released, because we produce early access builds of Java well in advance of the GA date. So even halfway through the 6-month release cadence, you can start kicking the tires on new versions of Java right away. And so we've really seen this kind of coalescing of the ecosystem around the release cadence. And that's been really exciting to watch.
What are your thoughts on, as much as, it's sometimes it depends on, when you have a lot of customers or users, they have their own products that depend on that particular technology. So they do want to know point releases which are dropped on a particular day so they can plan ahead. But when we look at traditional open source, now, release one ready. So you're not holding back the release because, it's not ready yet. But at the same time, since you have a release date, you have a totally different, panic there. It has to be released. So if the feature is not going to make into this release, it will go into next release. So what are your thoughts on these two different, views of, of course, we have talked about that earlier also, but I just want to reiterate the difference kind of between release one ready versus having a set day for that.
Well, I think one of the biggest benefits that people don't even realize is that you basically nailed it. If something is not ready, it doesn't need to go into a release, because there doesn't need to be this pressure that it's going to be 3 years until the next release. It's literally right around the corner. In fact, like I mentioned, early access builds can start building your feature in before the next release is even announced or gone standard. Additionally, we have these mechanisms around preview features or experimental or incubator. And there are a number of preview features that are coming into becoming standard features in 16. There are some new incubator features as well, or APIs. And what this allows the team to do is introduce features into the platform to get kind of wider spread feedback. With preview features in particular, we are saying this feature is what we believe to be 95% of the way there. In fact, it's so ready that we're ready to show it to you and have you test it, provide feedback. And then, but we do retain the ability to make changes if we do get feedback that makes a lot of sense. And this really seems to be working. So we're just coming out of preview now with records and pattern matching, for instance, of. We have some new incubator APIs around vector API, foreign memory access, and foreign linker API. And so this process is working really, really well. That just simply wouldn't have been possible with the previous kind of 3 to 5 year release cadence.
Right. So I think it's a best of both worlds in the way that, first of all, you are not holding the release for another year. The next release is coming to in 6 months either way. And if there is a deal breaking feature, it will not affect, it can always be slipped into the next version, but we should not hold that release because there are other features that a lot of people want, but we cannot release it because, and I don't want to say that, but it also, sometimes developers tend to become lazy. Also, we will release it when it's ready, so we can still, take our time. Not that people want to hold back releases, but it does play a big role there. So now let's talk about some of the exciting use cases, because last time we talked was almost 1 year, and Edge has become a really big topic these days. Also, another big topic that has become is security. So I want to separate them. Let's talk one by one. Any new exciting use cases? I mean, of course, Java is everywhere. So you will be like, I'll be actually curious who is not using it versus using it. So, but in this whole 5G and edge computing, anything exciting you have seen for Java?
So I think that there's some trends that I'm seeing. As a team, we're seeing these trends towards lots of data, for starters. So lots of data, big data, machine learning type applications. We're seeing a trend towards microservices, highly concurrent, high throughput applications for web services. And so some of the areas of innovation in the Java platform, for example, are Project Panama. Project Panama is really focused on making it easier to work with native code on the machine. And so we do that through introducing some of the actual incubator APIs I mentioned: Vector API, Foreign Linker API, Foreign Memory Access API. These make it so that developers don't have to count as much on JNI. Eventually, we want to see developers who, with a lot less steps, much less error prone, be able to interact with native code to do things in the machine learning space with Java much easier. And so frameworks and libraries will be able to sort of stay much more competitive with, let's say, Python that has quite a few libraries out there to do machine learning tasks. And that's a big goal of Panama. And I mentioned high throughput applications. So Project Loom is another one that's really focused on making concurrency simple again. And then take ZGC, for example. So ZGC, Z Garbage Collector, aims to reduce the pause times to sub 10 milliseconds for extremely large heaps. We're talking terabytes worth of heap sizes. And as part of 16, in fact, we have concurrent thread processing, which aims to reduce the pause times down to a single millisecond, which is really incredible for pause times on garbage collection. And so this kind of shows the direction of where we see the world going in terms of lots of data, high throughput. And then the final thing I'll say about that is, of course, Java developers want to be more productive. They want to write less code. They want to kind of solve the problem. They want in the way that they have it envisioned in their head, rather than having to do it a specific kind of way that the language forces you into. So at the language level, we've got things like records, which I mentioned, which is a new class that allows you to represent data just as data. You kind of like see what you get what you see in a way with records. They're transparent carriers for, I would say, immutable data, nominal tuples or named lists. This, one of the really big benefits of this is that it reduces boilerplate significantly. So if you have hundreds or thousands of classes that all have equals, two-string hash code, getters, but it's really just representing data in your application, records is going to significantly reduce the boilerplate and allow you to write the code as you sort of had originally envisioned. Same goes for switch expressions, same goes for text blocks and local variable type inference.
We talked about exciting new things. Let's talk about anything that developers should be worried about, any depreciation or any feature that were removed.
I'd say the number one thing is what we're really trying to remind the ecosystem is that frameworks and libraries are absolutely keeping up on the release cadence. So the releases that I've been talking about, the 6-month release cadence, they don't look like the releases of the past. So if you were a Java developer who upgraded from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, even 8 to 9, the releases today don't look like that. They're much more approachable. They're much more predictable. They're much smaller because we didn't suddenly get 3 years of bandwidth, in 6 months. So you can work the early access builds into your CI/CD pipeline, get access to all of this amazing new functionality. Out of the box, your applications are going to be more performant, and they're going to just operate more efficiently just by upgrading for your versions of Java. So that's kind of the main message that we're trying to get out there. And of course, there's tons of great features to look out for. I've already talked about records. Pattern matching is another one. And then, of course, on top of this, there's a number of exciting things happening. So, if you take a look at GraalVM, of course, to get added application speed or native image to reduce the startup time down to even milliseconds. Take a look at things like Helidon and Micronaut to do more microservices development, higher level frameworks, but still to be very lightweight. These are a lot of the kind of technologies that are driving innovation in the ecosystem. I'd say just a couple more things to be aware of as part of JDK 16. So there's a new packaging tool that, what the packaging tool does, what it does and what it represents are, first what it does is you take your code and the packaging tool will combine that with its dependencies and the Java runtime, and will package it up into an executable that can run on a native system. So for example, you can produce a Windows exe file or a Mac runtime file that will run on your Mac OS. And what this represents is this shift towards the deployment of applications by a single artifact. It's more like the App Store model. So whereas we used to think about Java applications as code, and then you have a JRE running on your machine, and then we combine those things and they work. But now through the App Store model, we're bundling in all the dependencies, we're bundling in all of the JRE or the runtime along with your application code. So that's the packaging tool, which became a standard feature of JDK 16. And then one other thing I'll mention is the strong encapsulation of the JDK internals by default. So as part of the modularity system with Java 9, we started to lock down the JDKs so that we wanted to warn people if they were depending on internal APIs. There are many internal APIs in Java that people got accustomed to using, but they were never guaranteed to be consistent. So that will keep a lot of applications from being able to upgrade easily. It could break them if those APIs change in the future. And so given that there are millions upon millions of Java applications out there, it's really important that we continue this trend towards locking down the internals so that we can sort of help developers help themselves by making their applications more resilient, making them more secure, and making sure that they don't break. And so this strong encapsulation flips that bit from we're going to warn you to we're now going to give you errors at both compilation and runtime. And it's something to watch out for at JDK 16. You can still disable that if you want to continue to utilize internal APIs, but it's something to look out for. There is one exception to that, which is sun.misc.unsafe. That's because we believe that still at this time, many people rely on that. There's no great alternatives yet. So we continue to allow the usage of that API without breaking throwing compilation errors.
Chad, thank you so much for taking time out today and talk about this release and also some of the exciting new use cases and how Java continues to remain important even in this cloud world. And I wish we could have done this in person, but I hope things will settle out soon. And by next release, we might be doing it in person. So once again, thank you.
I hope so. Swapnil, thanks for having me.